Hello, my name is Richard Allen, and to start out my speech today, I would like to ask a rhetorical question. How much do you actually know about how your computer works? As students, most of us use computers on a day to day basis just to do everyday tasks that we have to do, like writing papers, doing research, finding information online, submitting our assignments. Almost everything that we do, we have to have a computer for. So, why is there such a disparity between understanding how the computer itself actually works and the widespread use of it among people? And what can that lack of knowledge do to impact you negatively, and how can having that knowledge impact you positively? That's going to be the topic of my speech today. So, I'm going to teach you a little bit about how computers work and show you some reasons why it's good to have that knowledge, as well as ways that you can use that knowledge to your benefit as well. So, to begin, we're going to look at a couple of studies that I found. We have some research done by the Pew Research Center. In 2018, they did a study that showed that 72% of U.S. residents believe that tech companies charge more for service than they believe that the service is worth. Which, a lot of people can feel that way, especially when they don't really know what the issue is and they don't know how to fix it, and somebody just does something that takes maybe a couple of minutes. You might feel like, was the work that they did actually worth it? Another study that was done by the same research center showed that 64% of U.S. residents do not know how to fix uh, or troubleshoot their computers beyond simple issues. So the outcomes of these two studies, when paired together, paint a picture of how paint a picture of showing that many people in the United States can feel very trapped with the idea of having to pay whatever prices that tech companies may charge to get their PCs fixed because they don't understand how to do it themselves. And with a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of free resources that I'll also show you at the end of the presentation, you'll be able to take care of some of those issues on your own, and you won't have to worry too much about taking it to a professional that might charge you more than you feel like the repairs are worth. So first we're going to talk about the components that are a part of the system. So we're going to look at it as an analogy, and the analogy that we're going to use is the nervous system. So in the nervous system, it only consists of two main parts, the brain and the nerves that spread all the way throughout your body. So the motherboard is like the nerves. That's what sends all the information to all the other parts, which are all included in the brain, and it receives information from them as well to be able to have an interface between all of these different parts of the brain. And then there's the CPU, which is like the functioning brain. This is the part that is used to work on a task directly. So if there's something that you need to get done or something that you need to do, um, when you have to think about it and you're actively doing it, that's what the CPU is for. And then there's the GPU, which handles the visualization. So it's what renders a picture, or like renders the visual image that your brain can see or create. And then there's also RAM, which is like your short-term memory, things that you need to only know for a short amount of time. And then there is drives, which is like the long-term memory. So we're going to start off by going a little bit more deeply into the motherboard. So the motherboard, once again, is the nerves. This is what literally is the interface between all the other parts. Everything is connected to this, and through this is how they send directions and instructions back and forth, and that's how it makes the rest of your computer work as a complete system. Um, and next is the CPU, which is also known as the central processing unit. So this is the functional brain. This is what handles complex calculations and processing. It has usually multiple cores inside of it that are capable of doing more complex and robust calculations. And that's what works on the more difficult issues or difficult sets of instructions that the rest of your computer can create. And this is also where the instructions for programs and software are sent to in order for them to be able to run properly. And then the next part is the GPU, which is the graphics processing unit. And the graphics processing unit is in charge of visualization, as it says. This is what your computer uses to create the picture on your screen. So where the CPU has a larger portion of, or a smaller portion of cores, but they're more robust and able to handle more complex calculations, the CPU has less robust cores, but they have more cores generally speaking, and can handle uh, well, they are meant to handle less complex calculations. So on a screen, it's made out of pixels, so the GPU has to calculate the values for every pixel, however many frames there are per second, every single second. So this just does a lot of small, quick calculations over and over and over again rapidly to be able to paint the picture on your screen easily. And the next component is RAM. So this is random access memory, and as I said, it's basically the short-term memory. So this stores data that is only needed for a short amount of time, but is needed right now for the task that is currently at hand. So when you think about when you're using your computer, if you're accessing a website or running a program, there's many things that your computer has to be able to remember and think about in that moment, but it doesn't necessarily need to remember that beyond when you're finished using that program. So this is where that information would be stored temporarily. It's similar to like how if we as students were to like cram right before a test, and then we put all the information that we needed right for that moment, and then obviously after the test is over, we're probably going to forget most of that information. It's a similar kind of thing. All right, and then the last component is the drive. So the drive is like the long-term memory. This is where you store data that you want to keep and you want to be able to access whenever you want to access it at a later date intermittently. So where it's not quite like the RAM is that this information isn't something that you're just using to calculate something for a program. It's something that you're accessing like files, or it can be programs or anything like that that you want to stay on your computer indefinitely until you decide to take it off in most cases. Um, so there's different types of drives as well. There's a hard drive, which is basically a spinning disk, just like kind of like a CD inside of an enclosure that's spinning. It has to be read by a laser, and that one is generally slower. And then there's one like the one that's pictured here, which is a solid state drive where nothing in the drive moves. It's all stationary, and so it's a lot easier for things to be found and read off of it, so it's generally faster. So now we're going to talk about some of the ways that you can use this information about how these components work and what they are to troubleshoot your system. So one of the most simple troubleshooting tools that people tend to only use to quit out of programs, but can actually show you a lot of information about how your system is working, is Task Manager. So the easiest way to get to it is just to press Control Shift Escape, and it will open up. And here you can see that they have information on how much CPU usage that there is, how much memory usage there is, that's the RAM, how much disk usage, that's the drives, and how much GPU usage that there is as well, and that is obviously the graphics processing unit. So you can see easily where if you're having any issues, if any of those numbers are climbing too high, then that means that you know that that's where your issues are, and that's probably why your computer is having issues, or it's slowing down, or it might be crashing. And then another one that is very useful in being able to help you see what's going on with your system is Hardware Monitor. So this one is a little bit more advanced than Task Manager, but you can use this to see the temperatures and the utilizations. So where Task Manager like shows you the utilizations and lets you quit out of processes or programs that are running that are taking up too much space, you can use Hardware Monitor just to see like if you're overheating or if there's a point where it's getting throttled by how high the temperature is getting for that particular component. And then another one which is really good, but it's also a more advanced one, is MSI Afterburner. So this one is more specific to GPUs. You can see exactly what the clock speeds are running at, how fast it's running, what utilization it's at, and you can even edit some of that information if you know what you're doing and you're comfortable doing it, to overclock it to get even more performance out of it if you feel like it's running slower than it could or should be running as well. So with everything that I've talked about today, hopefully you're able to understand a little bit more about how the computers work and how you can troubleshoot them to make them run smoothly for you and not have to always go to a repair person and pay whatever fee that they tell you to pay because you don't really know how to do it yourself. Thank you.